This episode of Education Chat contains sensitive discussions relating to student mental health, including topics such as suicide, generational trauma, and substance abuse. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Hinton, and I am your host for Education Chat, a podcast by students for students in the Inland Empire. Right now, more than ever, students are struggling with their mental health. According to the CDC, adolescents' mental health is worsening, as 40% of students experience persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. These feelings were also found to be more common among female students, LGBTQ students, and students across different racial and ethnic groups. And I am sure that many of the students watching today can think back to a time where they felt lost, alone, and unsure while they were trying to get their education. School can be stressful for so many reasons, but taking care of your mental health can make all the difference. In the United States, the month of May is observed as Mental Health Awareness Month. And while mental health is something that we should talk about year-round, this month gives us an intentional space to raise awareness and remind ourselves that we're not alone in the struggles that we face. And I want to highlight one organization across many college campuses in the IE that are making the effort to destigmatize the conversation around mental health. Active Minds is a nonprofit organization dedicated to mental health advocacy through supporting students on campuses, striving for legislation, and hosting workshops that educate others. There are many chapters of Active Minds within the Inland Empire, but I had the opportunity to speak with the president and treasurer of Active Minds at Riverside City College. Kyle Larson and Xavier Garcia are both students at RCC, but they are also advocates who are passionate about making change for the better at their school. In this episode, I met with them to discuss what mental health struggles students are facing, chat about a new social media ice bucket trend that I'm sure you might have seen, and learn more ways about how to break the stigma ourselves. Thank you so much for joining me today, Xavier.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here.
Thank you so much for meeting with me today, Kyle.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us your name, what you're studying in school, and what your position is in Active Minds.
Yeah, of course. So obviously, my name's Kyle Larson. I attend RCC campus. I'm president of the Active Minds chapter. As of this past semester, we are an official registered chapter, so it's quite exciting. And as president, I'm kind of rebuilding from scratch. We've had a very successful semester in my eyes. And in terms of what I study, it's a little complicated. For my associate's degree, I'm technically labeled as a communications major, but I feel like that's a little cliche. And so when I transfer, I'll be studying communications sciences and disorders or speech language pathology in the educational setting. And so I kind of am looking forward to helping people and give back in kind of mental health slash mind area, I guess. And so that's exciting.
My name is Xavier Garcia, 20-year-old dude. At Active Minds, I am the treasurer for Active Minds. My main goal is my main job is mainly just handling and the finances for the club and also do fundraising as well. But I also participate in general activities in the club, and I do my best to put the best foot forward for the club as well. I participate in most of our events as well.
And congrats on being registered for your own club.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would love to know what inspired you to join Active Minds in the first place, and what are your responsibilities as the president?
So I tell my club every time we get a new member, I'm a very open and honest person, and my first semester of college was A, very isolated, B, very confusing, and C, very lonely. And so when Club Rush comes around, it's kind of overwhelming, but also exciting because you see all these booths lined up or maybe lack thereof, and so your options may be plentiful or limited. And I've been involved in mental health advocacy in high school and before. And so something that I've naturally been interested in because I've struggled with it my whole life. And so I was walking around campus and I saw like Active Minds and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I walked up to the booth and I was like, mental health advocacy, like cool. And so I kind of just signed my name, showed up to the campus, and that's kind of like the story writes itself. And as cliche as it sounds, it's where I found my family and my friends and kind of a safe space to talk as little or as much as I want about my mental health and just have a place to go where people kind of understand something that is still ununderstandable, I guess, in the country because it's still stigmatized. And so, as president, I always say, like, my goal is to give back the space that I found. And so, in our club meetings, sometimes we do presentations about mental health topics. About literally, we did one the other week about the stigma surrounding mental health. And then I did the growing mental health crisis in America not too long ago. And then we also do fun activities such as like making bracelets and kind of we kicked off Mental Health Month of May with a guest speaker. A licensed therapist came to talk to us about like coping strategies. And so we also do little activities on campus. Like we hosted rock painting for our students just because art and mental health kind of go hand in hand as an outlet. And so my goal is to kind of make a safe, fun space by like a variety of techniques and ways. And so hopefully I've accomplished that. It's very interesting on the college campus, especially community college and a commuter school. And so kind of piecing it together here and there. We have in-club events as well as campus presence because it's all about community and it's kind of a place to break the isolation that I felt in my first semester and hopefully make people laugh and smile and not make fun of themselves, but also like shine light on the problems we may all have.
So I want to know from what you've learned from last semester and this one, what do you think are the biggest mental health struggles that college students are currently facing?
There's a couple things that I actually did a presentation on this a while back in Active Minds, where we went over like some of the big struggles that the common struggles in general. Everyone knows about like depression. Everyone knows about anxiety. There's a lot of other different conditions that people also suffer from that that cause a lot of stress. And cause a lot of issues for students. An example might be like substance use conditions, where someone might be in their new environment. They have new people that they're meeting. They're scared, they're stressed, and unfortunately, that causes habits and might lead to worse mental health over time. And I know there's a scary statistic that happened that they found in 2021, where it's like 46 million people met the criteria to be diagnosed with substance use disorder. Only 6% of them sought care. Like over 40 million people who have substance use disorder who aren't seeking care right now. That's pretty scary, right? That's like, and you think about the rates of like overdoses in this country, it's like, yikes, that's not good. We gotta do something. And that's one thing that I believe contributes really harshly. I think another thing that happens is you're gonna I think you see a lot of students who go into like college with maybe an idea of what it's supposed to be, and they go in and they realize, oh, it's not like high school. It's like you have no friends. There's no one who has an obligation to talk to you. No one wants to talk to you. Like you're walking into class and no one's looking at you. You don't know anyone, and it's super super lonely, man. It really is. The first semester, I had no friends, and that can cause, I think, a lot of the loneliness and obviously the mental health struggles that do exist. That affects your grades. We've seen that in studies as well. So all these different things contribute to kind of a really high stress environment that can create a lot of anxiety for people, right? That's what I think I'm most worried about, if anything, gonna be, that anxiety, just because like there's so much like stress with finals, stress with midterms, stress with people, stress with classes, stress with my professor's super like, I gotta add this class because there's 40,000 people on the wait list. It's like tons of like little things like that that really can bother people.
What aren't college students facing in this moment? Let's be real, because between working, balancing school, balancing jobs, balancing just everyday life, and balancing like news right now is not the best. And so, just with all the stress we feel, the anxiety we may see or feel, and then being sad, but it's more than that, like having depression, having anxiety, having different disorders that we may or may not feel comfortable about. And so, there's tons of people in my club that have become more confident in speaking about what they go through, and there's still some that are shy. And so, as someone who tries to be as empathetic and understanding as possible, I have talked to many people in my life, ranging from eating disorders to anxiety and depression to like literally anything in between. And as a sounding board, like I don't judge, and you kind of just have to like listen to people and acknowledge their feelings and say, like, hey, like, not like that stinks, but like, yeah, it sucks. And I feel for you and kind of all of that. And so, I've seen I think I've been in mental health advocacy for about 4 years. And so I've had a lot of just like honest, genuine conversations about like life-changing topics or like very serious topics. And so I've heard a lot, and it's kind of cool that I can be there for people, you know?
Yeah, it's a great position to be in, and especially during this month, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm sure you guys are kicking off with a bunch of things. And recently,
Yeah.
there's been a rise of the USC Speak Your Mind Challenge. So that's from the University of Southern California, from their Mental Illness Needs Discussion Club. So kind of they're part of Active Minds too. And I want to know, how can awareness like this change the way people approach the topic of mental health? Because I heard you had to do this challenge yourself, and you were
I
nominated.
did, yes.
Hey everyone, my name is Kyle Larson, and I was nominated by Quinn Pierce for the USC Mind Ice Bucket Challenge. Considering I've struggled with mental health my whole life, it's kind of important to me to keep the conversation going and stop the stigma surrounding mental health. It was only a matter of time before I got tagged, and it's kind of fitting. So here's my Ice Bucket Challenge. Ready? No.
It was kind of fitting as like president. Obviously, it was only a matter of time, but it's important to, since we live in an age of technology, kind of jumpstart or catalyst online presence. And so having a generation that solely lives online through interactions of digital media, just seeing it repetitively and having like the hashtag or the nomination kind of shows interest backed by, I know it's like the thread or the grid post from USC of like why we do it and like how to donate and how to make serious impact. And then Active Minds also jumped in and said like, hey, here's our donation link, here's what we do, here's how we help people. And so just having like the repetitiveness and just the awareness to put yourself out there in a very genuine, real way without the filters and superficiality of social media is important, especially for serious topics that may be uncomfortable for people. Because saying, like, hey, something's wrong, like nothing, there's no true definition of normal, but it can be scary admitting that you're different or like something's wrong and asking for help.
I think it absolutely. I think it can help, and there's a couple of different reasons why. Is number one, you're kind of not to say it's like unoriginal, but you're taking from the you're taking from the ALS challenge, which it was very big. It was a very big thing. You had big names that were participating in it. Everyone knew about it. No one had issues with it. I mean, it works, right? You're getting attention to it, and then on top of that, it exposes people to okay, what is minds? What is active minds? People might go look at the website. What is active minds? Like we go on right now, like you'll see like the mission statements that we have. You go onto the website and it's already literally right there. Speak your mind, ice bucket challenge, making a splash for mental health. Right. And then you go down, oh, I'm curious, what is this? And then you can go into the about us and you'll learn about the story of active minds, right? There's so much exposure that's happening with the Speak Your Mind challenge. It's not just for active minds in general though, but it is also just for advocating for mental health, right? Awareness, especially because lots of people go into college. Maybe they don't know that they have anxiety. Maybe that they don't know that they have depression. And there are treatment modalities they can go through. There is people that they can seek to get help, and we want to be able to have them access those resources. Right?
Yeah.
This is very important, and I think in like a almost like nostalgic way, this is like a really good way to reach this because when we were kids, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, that was a whole thing. The cool kids were doing it, dude. When I was like 10 years old or 11 years old, man, there was like tons of people that were doing it. And it's like, what? Now we're doing this for this? This is like I'm literally in Active Minds. But this is like super cool, right? So when I first saw it, I was like, there's no way, right? And then our president got nominated for it. And I saw it on his Instagram where he had to do it himself. And I was like, this is so cool.
But I think it's a very positive experience just for people of all ages. You have the older generations who maybe are still living on Facebook slash maybe dipping their toe in Instagram, but with the generation that's going to be the most positive change in the world, I think it was a very smart move to have an online hashtag just because it gives people awareness, it gives people kind of a fun outlet to speak their mind and really like hashtag speak your mind, hashtag break the stigma. And so in that way, I think it was very kind of fun and open and an easier way to say like this is me without being judged, you know?
It's a very big and really smart move. I think that USC, their Active Minds chapter, did. It was really cool to see that they kind of took initiative in that, and it's nationwide now, right? Like you see that in like TikTok, you see that on Instagram, I see it wherever I look. So it's really cool to see that there's more awareness, especially for this month. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's extremely important now. it's also should be important because it's almost finals, right? So this is something that's very important. And I think that it was a very good thing that this happened.
I would say that a lot of people participating in this challenge are younger people, like college students themselves and kind of people our age. But even though they're doing this challenge, I still feel like there's still a stigma around mental health, even though people are doing their best to bring awareness. Why do you think there's still that stigma, even though it's becoming more acceptable to talk about it with people our age?
There's a couple things. So stigma. I actually, when I told you I made a presentation about mental health in our club, it was actually particularly challenging, kind of the stigma around mental health. And psychiatry.org defines stigma in three different ways. There's public stigma, self stigma, and structural stigma. Structural, okay, structures like institutions, structures like society, structures like maybe colleges, right? Government. There is self stigma, so things that we internalize because of our environment or because of what our own thoughts about mental health are. Unfortunately, the world isn't black or white. There's so many gray spots that exist, and what I mean by that is, just because we have one thing that went really well for us does not necessarily mean that the problem is fixed. Unfortunately, we're in a society where people are coming up with adverse childhood experiences that are affecting their mental health that lead them to have, for example, PTSD or trauma. People might grow up with depression or anxiety. They might be growing up lonely and they're isolated. They don't know how to approach this, and unfortunately, it feels like the older generations still haven't made the steps towards inviting a better mental health conversation.
Genuinely, I think it's still generational because as much as we would like to pride ourselves on like being the most progressive generation in any sense of the word or however you interpret that, it's just nothing's going to change until entire mindsets change. But unfortunately, we still have age gaps and social normality gaps that exist between generations, which is completely normal. But the unfortunate truth is that older people are teaching their kids like be a man, like don't talk about your feelings, or be like having depression is just being really sad. And I remember having a teacher in high school tell me straight up, I was like, I have really bad test anxiety. And she's like, oh, we all get a little nervous sometimes. And I was like, you can't be like for serious. Like this is an actual like diagnosed problem I have. Like I have an anxiety disorder. And then on top of that, I was suffering with depression my sophomore year. And I was like, oh, like I'm not in a very good headspace. Like I have depression right now. And she's like, oh, we all get really sad sometimes. And so just like the wording behind it from the older generations and kind of just having the people we look up to, our parents, our grandparents, the people that matter most to us, tell us that it's like odd or strange or unacceptable to feel anything, either have feelings or have like unusual feelings is kind of toxic. And so, yes, the younger people kind of get it, but if you don't grow up in a household that accepts it or talks about it openly, whether it's for different generations or different cultures, it's not normalized across the board. And no idea really is. Like you can't have a universal idea as much as we would love to. And so that's where I kind of feel like we fall short. It's just lack of open conversation because, like I said, some people are comfortable talking about it. But then like grandparents are like, oh, back in my day, I had it so much harder. But like, yeah, grandpa, but that doesn't mean my struggles are any less. And so it's just like a disconnect and a lack of understanding and empathy. And I think that's genuinely where it stems from. I can't really pinpoint anything besides cultural differences, age gaps, and honestly mindsets. Like it's a work in progress.
That affects severely, I think, the younger generations because they look up to their mom and dad, and when you see, especially in my culture, where I'm a Latino, it's like when I grew up, like my dad didn't talk about his mental health. He just had to deal with it and had to work crazy hours, to put food on the table. And it's like, man, that's what I got to do. Heck no, dude, that sucks, dude. I'm not gonna lie. And it's like, and the women in my culture are kind of like taught to like just like, oh, you just have to take it. The men are the bosses, right? You just have to be at home and just take it, which is like that's not the solution, I don't think that. I don't think I would recommend that for someone who has depression, right? Um, and then that's one big thing, at least in this out in our area, because in Southern California, it's a lot of Latino families, and then outside of that culture, in general, mental health has never been given that treatment that it really deserved. It was even like 60 years ago, 50 years ago, psychiatrists would have laughed at people who said meditation might be a good way to handle your anxiety. And nowadays, that's like the standard of care, right? That's like that's like one of the big recommendations that's non-clinical is meditate, right? There's a lot of preconceived notions that occur because of media, because of culture, and because of ignorance. I think honestly, that people will come in with these ideas of mental health and they will be informed by that and they won't listen or take any other side of it. And then there's also a lot of socioeconomic. Hey, I'm kind of broke. I can't afford a therapist. I'm kind of broke. I can't afford a psychiatrist. I can't afford paying the copay for my antidepressants or my anxiety meds. Yeah, life freaking sucks. And if we have a system that's in a society that works against young people a lot. And young people, I believe, are expected to do so much and be almost perfect to be able to survive. And if you aren't, then then you then you don't make progress in the world. It really sucks. You don't make progress in your life. That's not going to change the reality that we need to advocate harder. We need to push harder for legislation, and we need to push harder to change the culture in this country that would allow for a more positive and more open conversation around mental health. Because right now, it doesn't seem like people want to have that conversation.
So, do you think that college campuses generally provide enough support for mental health, or is there more that needs to be done?
I would like to say that colleges do a very good job of like portraying that they care. And maybe they genuinely do. Like maybe they're trying their best efforts and then their student population genuinely can't support it. And not to throw my campus under the bus, but we have 20,000 students and 4 or 5 counselors.
Um, yeah. So we had a speaker for our chapter just literally last week, I think. The speaker was like, he asked us like, what kind of resources do you have on campus? It's like, okay, we have maybe 4 clinical counselors. For how big is the student body? About 20,000 students at RCC. 5,000 per clinical counselor. That's really bad numbers, dude. That's really not okay. And he was like, that's horrible. And he talked about how difficult sometimes it can be with scheduling appointments. I have the unfortunate mishap of going through Kaiser, and they're on strike right now. So it's like I have nowhere else to go except to go to like school services. And for a while, I was going to what's it called? I was going to the crisis team, the crisis intervention team, for a little while because I had a couple big things that happened in last semester. And recently, just in April, I was informed by my crisis counselor that the grant for the crisis team had run out. So it's like they were not getting renewed, and she was no longer to be able to be on campus as the crisis team. And it's like, wow, like I just lost a resource that I was literally using at that moment, and I no longer could seek care with them. And I was like, that's scary. And that was through the school. Schools, I understand, it's always a money thing, right? You only have a certain amount of money, and if you're an educational institution, you're probably going to put a lot of that money into education itself. But you have to, in some way, create an environment that is suitable for learning. And we need to do that, and we can do that through advocating for more funding, more funds, more grants for mental health services. And honestly, I don't think the school has done enough.
And so just the ratio of not saying that everyone's struggling, but just 20,000 possibilities for people struggling and 4 counselors or 5 counselors. Like, yes, we may have one appointment per week in our student psychological services, but that doesn't mean you're guaranteed an appointment or a time slot solely because of the like demand for therapy or counseling outweighs the resources present. And so my campus has kind of a darker history of suicide attempts and completions on campus. We had a situation where a student attempted off of a building, and then we didn't know what genuinely happened for hours afterwards. And then all we got was like a thoughts and prayers email with like emergency counseling numbers outside of campus. And so, yes, they provided all the crisis lines, but it was like a lack of communication, genuinely. Like they see this problem unfolding on campus, and then I know like it's an emergency situation, but just the emergency response time of communication between students and staff. I had teachers 5 hours afterwards being like, I don't know what happened. And so they would like to pride themselves on having like, oh yeah, we have counseling opportunities, but that doesn't mean you're guaranteed a time slot, like I was saying. And so I feel Like a lot of campuses do a really great job of sending like thoughts and prayer emails and like listing the sources, but when it comes to utilizing the sources, it's kind of inefficient. And so, president of the mental health club, like that's kind of a point I drive in. I go to meetings with faculty, I go to meetings with like staff, and I'm like, hey guys, like I know you try to sweep it under the rug, but our campus history in the past 10 years isn't exactly like a shining spot. We do have darker side to our campus, and it's something that I've been really pushing to acknowledge because yes, we're like a mental health club on campus, and yes, we're a smaller club at a commuter school with less presence that we would like. Not saying that like growth isn't possible, but just kind of being swept under the rug, even on my home campus, it's kind of lack of resources.
The resources on campus that we have are inadequate. And on top of that, the school isn't doing what it should be doing to prevent suicides. Really, really scary, right? And this is an environment that I think this is not a suitable environment for learning. I don't think, but it's the only environment that a lot of students have because it's a community college. I don't think that many students who want to seek mental health care can. I don't believe that all the students, if all the students that needed mental health care went to get mental health care, I think the school would be overwhelmed. They would not be able to handle the influx of students. And that's really scary.
I feel like I'm a very positive person, and so I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they do have our best interests in mind. They just don't have the resources themselves to accomplish that goal. And so that's kind of where I stand. Like maybe there is a better future for college campuses with the growing mental health crisis, but that's not going to happen until after the conversation changes.
It can definitely be frustrating as a student when you're trying to seek help, but you're not able to get it. Like having 4 counselors for 20,000 students and them not being able to get proper mental health care, proper appointments, with that crisis counselor being completely eliminated when students every single day are going through different things and they don't know how to manage it. So I just want to close out this interview with your own personal advice. I know people might not be able to see a therapist or get certain help from their family, but what advice do you have for these students who feel overwhelmed or isolated in school and don't know how to start addressing their mental health? What things can they do?
This is kind of like a ironic thing for me to say because sometimes I don't take care of myself sometimes. So this is like I get it. I might be a little bit of a hypocrite here, but the easiest thing that you can do is go outside. It really is. Going outside, and if you're like me in any way, or people are like me in any way, where it's like they kind of isolate themselves at home, they don't like going outside, they don't have friends, they don't really do anything. Go outside, especially on campus. Just attend a club, a random club. That's one step. That deals with loneliness. Go to your like local philosophy club or your local like arts club or your local, I don't know, quill writing club. Anything where there's people that you can meet and hang out with, right? It doesn't matter if it's like the most cringiest, like, oh, we're gonna play board games and Monopoly all day, or if it's like some serious, oh, we're a chem club and we're gonna like analyze. Bro, just go outside. Do something, right? That's step one. And step two, you really need to, I guess, inform yourself of the resources that you do have on campus and how can you exercise or utilize those resources. One thing that they do, I will say in a positive for RCC is they do actually allow one free session per week for student counseling services. So that is a benefit, and if people just learned that, I believe that people knew that. I believe that they would be able to they might be more willing to use those resources because like, hey, I don't gotta pay for this. Like at all. Like I haven't paid a single dime to student health services at all. Like, I'm not even kidding. So it's like that's pretty cool. So I mean if people took those resources and utilize those resources, even if you have to pay a little bit on campus, but if your college, pays for those services, that you might as well start using them now, right? If they have a doctor they can speak to, that doctor can prescribe you medication that you might need, right? They have nurses that can do assessments on you, that can do risk assessments and watch for your symptoms, right? These are actionable steps that you can take. If you feel like you're in a lonely environment and you don't really know what to do, go to your local NAMI on campus or Active Minds chapter. Participate. Active Minds chapters across different campuses, they usually cooperate with other campuses. They won't be completely the actual chapters themselves won't be locked in for only one campus, right? Active Minds here at RCC would gladly cooperate with any other Active Minds chapter, any other Active Minds chapter members. We are all part of a national organization that wants to further mental health conversations. And if they could do that working together, we'd love to do that, right? And then for people who, and if for the last thing, I guess, if and all else fails, if you feel like you're in a crisis, there's one advice I always give. If you're in a crisis right now, call 911. It's very simple. I know it's very scary. I've had the unfortunate um, the unfortunate mishap of having to call 911 myself a couple of times. It is very, very scary. It's very scary to admit to someone that you're not feeling okay. Um, but I'm still here and I'm alive because of it, right? I got this. I got the help that I need, and I didn't die, right? And it's extremely important. And I don't want to see someone else die because of a mental health condition. So we have resources. And on top of that, if people are worried about covering the costs, they can't deny you at the ER. I mean, there's federal law, so they can't deny you for any mental health condition at all. So you will be able to get treatment if you go to the emergency room as well. Um, I always say that's like a last resort, but if you have to, you have to.
Well, if you ask my mom, she would say stop complaining to her about it, which is really funny because I mean, obviously, like talking to people helps, and I love my mom and she loves me. That was absolutely a joke. But genuinely, like if you're struggling or you feel isolated, talk to the people you trust, talk to the people you care about, join a club on campus, visit your student psychological services if you need to. Um, but feeling everything in between and struggling with multitudes of mental health issues myself, it does get better. And I know that's like really cliche, but I have seen like the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And so it does get better. And I know it doesn't feel like it, but just to get started and to get out of bed every day is like an accomplishment in itself. And so if you're struggling and feel isolated, like reach out to a friend maybe you haven't seen in a while. And I know I'm kind of like repeating what the internet tells you, and I know you've all done like your internet searches, like what to do if I'm sad. But genuinely it does help. And so if you're seeing this and you are like sad and isolated and lonely, walk around your campus and join a club. Like reach out to classmates and ask for their number because the worst they're going to say is no. And especially in college, like I would love to be asked for a study group, and so would everyone else. And so just be the person that like puts yourself out there and was like, I would love to get your number for a group chat. I would love to join a club. I would love to like reach out to a professor, talk to your parents or your guardian if that's an option. Or honestly, like I have no shame in admitting it. I've been in therapy for 5 years and I love it. And I know that's not for everyone, but it's kind of nice to like talk to someone who's kind of like paid to be on your side, or even just like have a sounding board. And I know again there's that stigma surrounding it, but genuinely like there's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in saying you're struggling. Um, so just reach out because people genuinely care and it does get better. And community is kind of how we build ourselves as well as others. And so isolation is easy as an email, a text, a conversation. And coming from someone who's felt the loneliest in a room full of people and like the saddest and the happiest times of my life, like it gets better and it just takes time. And recognize the small victories because I took that like for granted a lot of the time. And looking back, I've accomplished a lot more than I thought I would. And so just take life as it comes and enjoy it. And the lowest of lows makes the highest of highs even better. And so I always say, like, you can't have emotions without the polar opposites. You can't be happy without being sad, but you have to recognize that being sad also allows you to be happy. And so kind of just maybe sit with your thoughts and rationalize yourself through them, but not the whole world isn't doom and gloom. And I found that to be very true. So,
Well, thank you so much
yeah.
for joining me today, Kyle.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Xavier.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure to know her.
I want to take a moment to say thank you. First, to Xavier and Kyle, who were willing to speak about mental health on their campus and share their insights. Your words are powerful, and your advocacy truly makes a difference for the community. Second, I want to say thank you to you, the listener. Mental health is still a difficult conversation for so many, but knowing that you are willing to learn from these students and support their mission is a game changer in transforming mental health norms across society. Talking about it, listening to each other, and showing up with compassion, those are the real steps towards breaking the stigma and creating a culture of care. Your presence in this conversation matters. To complete this episode, please remember that help is always available. Take the time to look into your own campus's counseling center and understand what resources are offered for you. And to everyone listening, you don't have to go through anything alone. Thank you for watching this episode of Education Chat, and I hope to chat with you again soon.